This is Rich, Hot, and Free. If you have ever known exactly what you needed to do next in your business, but then spent weeks overthinking it instead of actually moving on it, or if you've ever had a big month and then spent more time bracing for it to disappear or worrying that it's going to disappear instead of actually celebrating it, or if you've ever made a decision that felt completely right to you, completely alive, but then immediately started polling everyone around you to see if they agreed with you or saw the vision, or if you've ever caught yourself more invested in what's happening in someone else's business rather than building your own business, or if you've ever been in a slow week and immediately started questioning if it's always going to be this way or if it's ever going to pick up again, this episode is for you, my friends, because today we are going into exactly what separates the women who keep circling the same level from the ones who go absolutely freaking savage with their growth, create obscene levels of success, and never look back. What's up, and welcome to another episode of Rich, Hot, and Free. I'm Jill Stanton, and if any of those moments that I just described landed for you, I want you to know something before we even dive into this episode. This episode might feel a little confronting, okay? If you've ever been in a place that feels stuck or stretchy, and if you know deep down that you have another level to you, but for some reason you just, can't seem to get past your own bullshit or get out of your own way, then this episode is about to shake shit up for you. Let me have a quick sip of coffee. Now, before I get into it, I want to be really clear about something, okay? So when I use the word average in this episode, I'm not using it as an insult. Okay, I'm using it as a description of like a specific operating system, a specific set of beliefs and behaviors that keep incredibly talented, genuinely brilliant women stuck at a level that doesn't match what they're truly capable of. And here's the thing that makes the average mindset so sneaky and so hard to catch for a lot of people. It doesn't feel average from the inside. It feels reasonable and realistic. It feels like you're being quote unquote responsible. It feels like you're being self-aware. Okay, but underneath all of that completely reasonable sounding self-talk is a set of beliefs that are constantly keeping you at a level that doesn't match who you actually are and what you're truly capable of. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover today. First, I'm going to call out exactly what average mindset looks like in the wild. And I guarantee you're going to recognize at least one of these behaviors in your business or in your life currently. And then I'm going to walk you through 8 specific beliefs or 8 specific belief upgrades that separate the women who stay stuck from the women who go absolutely savage and make big shit happen in their lives. You ready for that? Let's dive in. So first, what does average mindset actually look like out in the wild, out in your business, out in your everyday life? Like, how can you tell if you're in this loop? Because like I said, often these behaviors and these beliefs can sound really logical, and they keep you stuck in small thinking and disempowered behaviors. So if you've ever finished a launch, and instead of actually celebrating it, you then immediately started scanning for like what went wrong or what wasn't good enough or where you could have been better, then that is an average mindset playing out. Now, I want to say, I'm not saying that you shouldn't assess your launches and promotions to spot where things could have been tighter or where you have some opportunities for growth. Like, of course, you should assess your launches. You should do debriefs on your promos. But when you have a solid promo and you have 50 people who join, okay? And 2 ask for a refund, and the only thing you hyper focus on is the refunds and not the other 48 people who are your dream buyers, then that's a perfect example of average mentality, okay? Because you're ignoring the wins and you're hyper focusing on the problems. And all that does is keep your attention on what you don't like versus what actually went well and where you killed it. Another way that this average mindset can show up for you is making a bold decision to pursue something or become something or do something or create something and feeling really good about it, feeling really lit up by it until someone you respect or know challenges it or doesn't get it, and then you immediately start second guessing yourself and your vision and your ideas and your moves. Not because they have Not because they're the bee's knees or they have a valid point, but because you took their discomfort and their confusion and you made it your own because you couldn't hold your own vision with confidence and conviction. And so instead, you doubted yourself into like a freeze state instead of processing their feedback, thanking them for it, and then moving forward on what you want to do and what feels alive to you in your business and in your life. Okay? Another one, say you have a slow sales week, and instead of staying neutral around that, you treat it like it's concrete evidence that something is broken or wrong, or you're not good at it, or it's always going to be this way, and you're like fucked from here on out. Okay, and then next week, things go back to normal and you forget that you were even spiraling until the next time, until the next slow week. And then this like emotionally volatile cycle just repeats itself instead of recognizing the pattern in the moment. Another example, I'm just gonna go on a roll. Another example of average mentality is you edit your behavior and how you show up based on or depending on who you're around, which has you watering yourself down in your content or how you show up in your sales process or how you show up in rooms with peers or those who are like quote unquote further ahead than you. It shows up in how you carry yourself with your clients and in your relationships, in your business, in your life. And this behavior can be really sneaky because it's tempting to just be like, no, I'm just reading the room. But all you're really doing in actuality is shape-shifting who you are to avoid other people's judgments or projections or criticisms. Another one, you keep saying, I'm going to do that for like 6 months about the same thing. And every time you say that or every time you do that, it subtly chips away at the thing that you need the most, which is your own self-trust. And then you wonder why making bold moves feel hard for you. If you resonate with this, hear me when I say this. You breaking promises to yourself is the thing that is making the bold moves feel so fucking hard for you because you don't trust yourself enough to follow through and make shit happen because you keep breaking promises to yourself. And so your self-integrity wavers, okay? Which is where the second guessing and the self-doubt really starts to gain traction. And I'm telling you right now, like average business owners, average thinkers, average people who operate in average mentality, people who default to this, they do this shit on the regular. And that's why they stall out. Because they don't trust themselves to move and operate in a way that their most successful self would. Okay? Another one, you tolerate dynamics, clients, prices, relationships that are so far beneath your standards that the version of you that you say you want to be would be like genuinely horrified that you stayed as long as you did. Not because you don't know better, but because saying something felt harder than staying quiet. And so you stayed quiet again. And while I'm on this little tangent of mine, here's another one. When things don't go your way, you immediately start looking for who's to blame or what's to blame, like the market or the economy or the chaos in the world or the industry or its timing or like the way that person showed up or the way that client behaved. Basically, you look outside of yourself and you use external circumstances as the excuse instead of acknowledging that the one variable you actually have full control over, which is yourself. And now that I'm on a roll to tag onto this, if you've ever done one of these in your business, which I honestly think all of us have at some point, right? I know I have. I guarantee you have done, if you've done this, then you have a whole list of reasons why you don't have what you say you want. I imagine that's true for you. And if you resonate with that, then I bet you any money that you've been running through that same list for fucking months, if not years. And somehow all those reasons feel completely legitimate and reasonable in the moment. And yet somehow the thing you say you want never quite arrives. All right, a few more. What about consuming more content around what other people are doing in their business than you create for your own business? Or not sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your perspectives because you're watching what other people do? If you recognize this in your business, then I bet you also track your competitors or probably use like industry trends to inform what you think you should sell or what you think you should do, which likely has you making decisions based on what seems to be working for someone else. And because of that, you've probably watered down your own instincts and your own nudges. And so you feel a bit lost around what moves to make, unless you're basing it on what other people are doing in your space. Do you recognize that one? What about saying yes when you really want to say no, but you're just, I don't know, too intimidated or too afraid or too uncomfortable to say no because you don't want to deal with someone else's reaction or emotions or projections. And so that has you trying to control other people's perceptions of you so you feel safe. But then you realize, like, no matter how many times you do this, you still don't feel safe because you're at the mercy of worrying what people might think, say, or believe about you, which then keeps you in the pattern. It keeps you in a pattern of people pleasing. And that makes you probably feel so fucking resentful because you can never really show up as your real self or do or say the thing that feels true to you, which makes the real you feel invisible. If any of those resonate with you, then I'm telling you right now, you likely default to average mentality, even though deep down you know you're meant to be a savage. I just spilled my coffee. And I want to say something important about this, actually, before we move on into the savage beliefs. I have personally done almost every single one of these easily at some point throughout my business. So I'm not saying this to be a dick or to call you out. This is meant to be a mirror for you. Okay? And the reason I'm trying to be as specific as possible with all of these different things is because you cannot upgrade what you can't see. But I'm telling you right now, you can easily shift these patterns and these behaviors and these habits because they're not personality traits. Okay? They're not who you are at your core. They're simply familiar ways of being. And you have the opportunity to upgrade every single one of these behaviors because every single one of them has a root belief underneath it. So, what are the 8 upgrades that flip this whole operating system on its head and move you from average mentality into an absolute savage identity? The first one is she is completely unbothered by who doesn't get it, and she does not over-explain herself or justify her moves or decisions. So I want to start here because this is the belief that shows up in the most sneaky and subtle ways, okay? And I think it's one of the most misunderstood upgrades on this whole list because this goes way deeper than just not caring what people think, okay? That's surface level. And honestly, it's not even that useful on its own. This goes way further than that. Okay, so the savage woman has made a genuine internal decision that her choices, her prices, her direction, her standards, her success, none of that requires external validation or external approval to be correct for her and how she wants to live her life and run her business. Okay? So when someone is uncomfortable with her growth or her success or her directness, she doesn't try to smooth it over. She doesn't try to shrink herself to make them feel better about it. Okay? She lets them have her feelings, lets them have their feelings, and she communicates with clarity and she holds her standards and she lets people have their reactions without making it mean anything about her. And here's the insight that I think is the most important one around this belief, okay? Most over-explaining is not about the other person, okay? It's not about giving them information or insight that they need. It's not about answering a question they asked. It's about your own unresolved internal wobble that you are trying to soothe the discomfort, you're trying to soothe the discomfort that you feel around that. But the savage move isn't to get better at explaining yourself. The fix is to get more solid in your own decisions and vision that you don't even feel any negative charge around someone not getting it or not seeing your vision or not understanding your moves or understanding your decisions. Okay? Because a woman who is truly savage and has conviction doesn't need you to agree with her. She's solid in herself and what she wants and what she's capable of. And then that certainty and that conviction is felt before she even says a freaking word. So how do you build this savage belief? First, you start by noticing every time you feel the urge to explain yourself. And in that moment, you ask yourself this one question: who am I actually doing this for? Is this person genuinely confused and deserving of context, or am I doing this because I don't fully believe in the decision myself and I'm looking for them to confirm or validate it for me? And then the next step, and this can feel challenging, truthfully, if you're an over-explainer, is to practice not over-explaining or not explaining yourself in general. And notice that nothing actually breaks when you do that. Because every time you do that, you are showing your nervous system that you are safe without needing people to agree with you, without needing to over-explain yourself. Okay? And over time, that skill stacks until one day you just realize that the urge to over-explain yourself or justify yourself barely registers for you anymore because you simply do not need the validation. And that is the moment a whole new level of liberation anchors in for you because you no longer need it. All right? The second savage belief is she is high integrity. She does what she says she will. And she is the same woman in every room she steps into. So most people think integrity is about how you show up for other people. And yes, that is absolutely a part of it. And doing what you say you're going to do is absolutely a part of it, right? Of course, in your business, in your relationships, like, yes. But that's also not what I'm talking about in this specific belief. With this belief, I mean self-integrity, like personal integrity. It's the integrity you have with yourself in private when no one's there to see your moves, when no one would actually know if you broke a promise to yourself or if you let it slide. Because here's what I know for sure. Every single fucking time you break a promise to yourself, you chip away at your own self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of literally everything else on this list. You cannot be unbothered without self-trust. You cannot hold higher standards without self-trust. You cannot take radical responsibility for your life and your business without self-trust. You cannot move towards your vision without self-trust. You cannot operate in detachment without self-trust. Literally every single belief that we're going to talk about today requires this one thing underneath it all, and that's self-trust. And here's the brutal truth about why bold moves can often feel so hard for so many women. It's because a lot of times they've spent months, if not years, breaking promises to themselves or negating their needs or putting themselves last, and their nervous system has learned that they can't always count on themselves. Okay, so when it's time to make the move or raise the price or post the bold take or, I don't know, have the hard conversation or end the relationship or end the client dynamic or launch the offer or go after the opportunity, the body says no. Not because it's dangerous or risky, but because it's learned that you don't follow through. And so it protects you from the disappointment of yet another broken promise. And it does that by talking you out of making the move in the first place. But when you start keeping your word to yourself, and when you do that consistently, something shifts at a really deep level for you. Like your nervous system starts to learn that you can count on yourself. Like you will always back yourself. It learns that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And that you are someone who moves when she says she's going to move. Okay? And from that place, your moves, your decisions, your dominant thoughts start to feel different. Like there's a new frequency of possibility to them because you've built the evidence that you are the kind of woman who follows through on what you say you're going to do. And that evidence is built by keeping your promises to yourself one at a time. Okay? It's not some big, dramatic, flashy action. It's built through the small ones. The email you said you'd send, or the post you said you'd write, or the conversation you said you'd have, or the decision you said you'd make. Like every single one of those moments acts as like this beautiful little deposit into your self-trust account. And a full self-trust account is what makes the savage moves not just possible, but like inevitable. Like those are just the kind of moves a woman like you makes now. Okay? And when that identity locks in for you, when you're just a woman with a high level of self-integrity, fucking anything becomes possible for you. Okay, belief 3. She takes full ownership of everything in her life, and she doesn't let her internal state be hijacked by things outside of her control. I swear I could do like a whole fucking episode on this one alone. Let me have a sip of coffee. Because here's what I see happening constantly. Okay, something external shifts, like the market shifts, or a launch underperforms, or a client ghosts, or disputes a payment, or acts out of integrity, or is a dickhead, or the economy does something, or the world goes bonkers. And a lot of women immediately let that external thing dictate their internal state. Okay, so their confidence drops, or their energy drops, or their level of self-belief drops, or they spiral, or they reassess everything, or they stress themselves out. They wonder if they should blow the whole thing up or burn it all down and start over. And then they wonder why their results reflect that drop in energy. Whereas the savage woman has made a very specific decision about what will affect her internal state. And I'll tell you right now, external things that she cannot control are not on that list, okay? Not because she's like bypassing it or burying her head in the sand, or because she doesn't acknowledge that hard things happen, or that, I don't know, like slow launches happen, or slow weeks feel slow, or whatever. But it's because she understands that her internal state is the one thing that she always has access to and she can always control. And so she develops and she hones that skill for herself. And she also takes full ownership over everything in her life, even the hard stuff, even the disappointing stuff, even the stuff that feels uncertain or challenging, because she refuses to spend energy looking for something or someone else to blame. Instead, she looks at what she has created or whatever she is currently experiencing, and she extracts the wisdom or the lessons from it, and then she uses that to decide what she's going to do differently in order to create a more ideal outcome for her. Okay? And if she went through something genuinely hard, she moves through it without making that her whole identity. Her whole identity is not based around the hard thing. She doesn't let the hard season become her whole freaking personality. Instead, she processes it and she learns from it and she keeps moving forward with her eyes on the fucking prize and where she's going and what she wants. Because claiming responsibility is the exact same thing as claiming power. If you created it, you can change it. And she knows deep down that victim mentality might feel like relief in the short term, but it costs you everything in the long term. So, how do you build this belief? Well, one thing that's worked for me is every time something goes sideways or every time something doesn't work out the way I want it to, I ask myself two questions. One, what did I create here? Two, what do I want to create instead? I'm telling you right now, those two questions will shift you out of victim mentality so quickly and back into your power so quickly, which is why I absolutely fucking love them. All right? Belief 4. She delusionally expects things to work out for her. And I love this one because it sounds slightly, I don't know, irresponsible, but it's actually one of the most strategically intelligent ways to operate in your business and in your life. And I'll use my own current season as proof here because the results for me have been so fun. I've talked about this a lot on the show now, but I've been doing a lot of work around the law of assumption. Okay, I talked about this in a previous episode, but I'm basically operating from the assumption that what I want is a done deal. And not just like a done deal, but it's actively pursuing me. It is actively making its way into my life. And I'm doing this by treating my relationship with the universe like I'm in a loving relationship or a deeply invested relationship. It's not just something I'm trying to get something out of. Okay. And in the 7 months that I've been doing this, I've tripled my client roster. I've had people join offers that I haven't even officially launched yet. I've had clients renewing. I've had men flowing into my life. I've had money flowing into my life in ways that just feel like, how the fuck is that happening? And also all of this is happening when I'm pretty much posting less, working less, and grinding less in the traditional sense. And here's why this actually works. Okay? Because your brain finds evidence for whatever you expect to find. So if you expect things to be hard for you, then yeah, you're going to find evidence of things being hard everywhere you look. Okay? If you expect to be overlooked, you will just naturally create this self-fulfilling prophecy where you get overlooked for things. Another one, if you assume money is inconsistent, then you will absolutely create a reality that has you in a chaotic relationship with money where it doesn't flow to you the way that you want it to. And also, the reverse is equally true. So when you train yourself to expect positive things, your brain goes to work looking for evidence that things work out for you. You start to notice opportunities. You start to move on your nudges and your zings. You start to show up with an energy that magnetizes all the results that you've been expecting. Okay? And let me be like 1,000,000% clear. This is a trained belief. It doesn't just like typically come naturally to most people, because so many of us are literally wired for threat detection and not opportunity detection. So you have to actively and deliberately practice expecting good outcomes until it just becomes your default setting. Like that's just what you expect in your life. So that looks like you no longer wondering if it's going to work out. And instead you start operating under the assumption that things always work out for you, because you're the type of chick who always finds a way to win. And when you do that, the universe, God, source, like whatever you want to call it, responds to your assumptions, and it helps create that. And if you can make this a habit, if you can make this like a default behavior for yourself, you will 1,000,000% start to bend your outer reality, because you have honed your inner reality to expect everything working out for you, to expect everything you want. Okay? And if you want to dive deeper into the law of assumption, go listen to my episode called Money, Men, and Magnetism. Or even better, get my Reality Bender bundle, which goes way deeper into this law and how to use it in your life to create, obscene levels of success. So the link for that will be in the show notes, or you can just go to jillstanton.com/realitybender and get it it's $22 right now. So it's an absolute no-brainer. Okay, let's keep going. Belief number 5 is she is absolutely okay being called a lot. Ooh, I spent decades of my life trying to avoid this exact label. I tried to avoid being called too much, too bossy, too assertive, too confident, too bold, too intense, too opinionated, too ambitious, whatever. And it showed up in so many places that I didn't even fully see at the time. Okay? And somewhere underneath all of that, I had been letting those projections land for me as truth. Like, maybe they're right. Maybe I am too much, or maybe I should dial it down. And I obviously wasn't trying to do it consciously, but it was definitely a limiting identity and a limiting belief that was running underneath everything I was doing, everything I was trying to create, and how I was showing up in my business and in my life. And I think this was also like a massive way that I stayed small in my marriage, truthfully, and really dropped my power, because I would negate my own needs. So I wouldn't be too inconvenient or need too much, or I don't know, be too demanding, or be told that I'm never satisfied, or whatever, like I really had to sit with the fact that for years I had been dimming myself and like adopting this belief that being fully myself was too much for the people in my life at the time, which was such a mindfuck to realize. And here's what I know now that I wish I had understood so much sooner is that being called too much by the wrong people is one of the clearest signals that you need to upgrade the people that you surround yourself with and the people that you pour into. Because the women who are palatable, who have sanded down like every single one of their sharp edges and is avoiding making people uncomfortable, they also don't make anyone feel anything at all, really. They don't activate people. They don't magnetize what they want into their lives. Instead, they just blend into the sea of sameness. Whereas the savage woman has made peace with being polarizing. She understands that her full expression, her in her unfiltered, unedited, fully turned up identity is what creates deep resonance with the people that she's actually meant to connect with and serve. And she has separated her sense of self completely from whether certain people approve of her expression or not. Because she knows that the people who are not meant for her or can't handle her will self-select out. So, how do you build this belief? Well, you can start by identifying one area of your life where you are currently editing yourself or watering yourself down, like one opinion that you've been keeping to yourself or one aspect of your personality that you've been dialing down for a particular person. And then consciously amp it up. And then notice who responds and how they respond. Because I promise you right now, the people who have been waiting for your full expression will absolutely show up the moment you give it to them. And there is nothing more magnetic and enticing to healed people than a woman who lets herself be all of herself. Okay? Next one, belief 6. The savage woman operates in detachment. And let me be really clear about what detachment means here, because I think it gets misunderstood by some people. And I don't want you to walk away from this one thinking it means like not caring, okay? Detachment is not about not caring, all right? The savage woman cares deeply about her work, her clients, her impact, her dreams, her vision, her family, her personal relationships, her wealth, her growth, her freedom, like her desires, like what she wants to create in the world. Like she cares intensely about all of that. So when I say detachment, what I mean is that she has separated her sense of self-worth or her sense of self and her emotional stability from whether any specific outcome lands or comes into her life the way she wanted it to. Does that make sense? And here's why I think this matters so much in business. Because desperation and neediness are the most repellent frequencies you could possibly operate from in your business. Okay? Think about it. How many times have you gone to sell something or pitch someone on a sales call or run a promo or a launch or whatever, okay? And you're thinking to yourself that you need it to work. You're like, I need this to happen. How often does that energy convert? Never. It never fucking works, because the person on the receiving end of it, of that conversation or that pitch or that promo, can feel the neediness. They can feel the scarcity. They can feel the desperation. And it makes them want to like step back or say no, even if they can't articulate why. Whereas detachment makes people lean in because it signals that you're good no matter what they decide. Okay? And that you don't need them in order to feel steady or whole or happy or complete. And people want what doesn't need them. Okay? So how do you build detachment, especially if you feel attached in this current season? One thing I do is that I get quiet with myself for a second and I say, I did my best, and I release the outcome. And then I try to go do something completely unrelated to whatever I feel attachment around, whatever I feel a charge around. And I personally find that that trains my nervous system that the doing and the receiving are two separate things. And you're really only responsible for one of them. And over time, that detachment becomes your default because you realize that you don't need anything outside of yourself to create that internal steadiness, which then helps your energy shift, ultimately making you more magnetic and more desirable to whatever it is you're wanting to call into your life, which we love for us, right? And I know this can feel really hard if you feel super attached to something, but it is truly one of the best things that you can develop for yourself. And I'm full honesty, like I'm still working on this, like all the time. And because of that, it gets easier and easier to call into my life everything I say I want because I actively practice this. All right. Second last one, belief 7. She assigns positive or neutral meanings to things, okay? Now, I know you guys have probably heard me talk about this, and I'm sure I've said it on the show before, but I'm gonna say it again because it's so freaking important to your growth. Listen to me. Nothing has any meaning other than the meaning you give to it. And the savage woman knows that she is the one who decides what something means in her life. Okay? And here's why this matters so much and so deeply. And it's why I want you to really sit with this for a second, because the meaning you assign to something determines your emotional response to it. Okay? And your emotional response determines your next action. And your actions determine your results. So, if you assign a disempowered meaning to a slow week, then you're going to feel defeated, and then you'll likely contract, and you'll likely show up with less conviction, which will then have you like selling with hesitation or like less power, and you'll be creating the very result that you were worried that you would experience. So the meaning is literally the mechanism that creates the outcome and how you feel about the outcome. Okay? And the average woman does this on repeat without even realizing it. So every slow week or every no that she gets or every critical comment becomes this like proof that confirms her worst fears about herself and what's possible for her. And then she uses that evidence against herself unconsciously. And then she wonders why she doesn't feel confident anymore, no matter how hard she works or how much she tries. Like she just never, quote unquote, gets there. Whereas the savage woman flips that whole thing on its head. So if she gets a no when she really wants a yes, she doesn't make it mean anything negative. She just makes it mean she's one step closer. Or if someone gets all feisty in her comments or says something mean to her in her DMs or whatever, she doesn't make that mean that she's doing something bad or wrong. She just simply makes it mean that she is repelling the ones who are not a match for her or her offers. Okay? Or if she has a slow month, or if it feels slower than normal, she doesn't make that mean anything about what's possible for her or what's possible for her next month or in her future in general. Okay? Because she knows that she's the type of chick who always comes out on top. And so she chooses the meaning that serves her highest expansion. And she protects her energy around that. She doesn't let anyone else's opinions or projections influence how she shows up or what she believes is possible for her. And that is an absolutely savage fucking way of moving through your life. And then the final one, belief 8, is she has a high opinion of herself and she values being respected over being liked. I genuinely think that this belief is the one that makes all the other ones possible, because everything on this list, like the unbotheredness, the integrity, the ownership, the, what are the other ones? The detachment, the okayness with being called too much. Like it requires a foundational, unshakable, non-negotiable high opinion of yourself. And I don't mean like being arrogant or rude or cocky or anything like that. I mean the women who move with like quiet, grounded, anchored, embodied knowing that of what they're worth. Like you can just sense it from them because they're not looking outside of themselves for that. Okay? They have developed that internally for themselves. They just are that. And this has such a beautiful cascade effect for women because it also helps them move into a frequency of being respected over being liked by the masses. And I want to unpack that before I go on, because that distinction is one of the most important ones on this entire list. Because here's the thing about being liked. Often, it requires you to constantly manage how you're being perceived. Okay? It requires you to soften your edges, or to agree when you want to disagree, or to hold back when you want to go all in, or to, I don't know, set your prices at a level that feel comfortable instead of at the level that reflects the value of the actual offer. Or you say yes when you mean no because the no feels too risky or too uncomfortable. And here's what's so insidious about this. Being liked can feel like success because it feels safe, because it feels like you're doing something quote unquote right. But what it's actually doing is keeping you in a state of performance. And you cannot build something truly magnetic from performative energy. I promise you that right now. And the average woman optimizes for being liked. And so she ends up being palatable to everyone and deeply resonant with no one. So she has a lot of people who think she's nice, but barely anyone who feels genuinely activated by her. Okay? Whereas the savage woman optimizes for being respected. And respect is earned completely differently than being liked. Respect is earned by saying what you actually think, even when it's not the popular take. Or respect is earned by holding your standards, even when someone pushes back on them. Okay? Respect is earned by delivering exactly what you said you would deliver. Respect is earned by showing up the same way, whether 10 people are watching or 1,000 people are watching. By being so consistently and unapologetically yourself that people know exactly what they're getting when they come into your world. That's how you create respect. And here's what I know for sure about the women who have really made this shift in their business and their lives. They don't necessarily have more followers, and they don't always have, like, I don't know, the biggest audience or the loudest presence, but they have something that is worth so much more than any of that. They have buyers who trust them completely and keep coming back for more. They have an audience that actually moves when they say to move, and they have peers in their industry who watch what they do. Because you cannot fake respect. You cannot manufacture respect. You cannot perform your way into it, because respect is the natural byproduct of a woman who has a genuinely high opinion of herself and moves from that place accordingly. Okay? And the respected savage version of you is absolutely unfucking forgettable, because you are uniquely yourself. And the second you decide that your opinion of you matters more than anyone else's is the second you unlock this frequency for yourself. And that is the second that you become completely unstoppable, because you will have unlocked this like savage identity for yourself. Okay? And if you want someone in your corner helping you catch these patterns in real time and really coaching you out of them before they cost you like another opportunity or another client who doesn't re-sign or sign up in general, or another level of growth that was like right there and waiting for you, then that is exactly what we do inside my coaching container called Savage. So everything we talked about today, like the unbotheredness and the self-integrity, the detachment, the delusional expectations, the high opinion of yourself, that is the work that we do inside my coaching container, Savage. And we do it through direct real-time audio coaching from me, where I get into whatever is actually running your life right now, and we upgrade it together. Because here's the thing, knowing the 8 beliefs is one thing, but having someone to catch you in the exact fucking moment where you're defaulting back to average mentality and refusing to let you, that is what actually changes the operating system permanently for you, okay? And that is how you stand out in your business, by anchoring into this frequency and building this identity for yourself. Okay? So the coaching in Savage is direct, obviously. It's customized to you, and it's designed to help you become the one that your dream buyers can't stop watching or buying from. So if you know that you've capped out in your business right now, or that you are capped out in your business right now, and no matter what you do, you just keep feeling like you're running into the same energetic brick wall of resistance, then I want you to go to jillstanton.com/savage and take a spin through that page and check out everything that you get when you join me and the rest of the savages inside this container. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope this was deeply valuable to you. If you're not already subscribed to the show, then go to jillstanton.com/podcast and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if something zinged with you, if something landed with you, I would love to hear from it. Or I would love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM on IG or drop a comment in the YouTube comments if you're watching the video of this, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Peace.